The ink beside effective date is still glossy when Nolan slides the warning across the glass table. Mara looks at Friday's date, then at the signature line carrying her typed name. "I've never seen this. You were informed verbally. You fired me 20 minutes ago." Around the table, 12 people become fascinated by laptops, water glasses, and a dead moth trapped inside the ceiling light. On the video wall, Imani Brooks from Halcyon Biologics leans closer to her camera. Nolan uncaps his silver pen. "We'll backdate your warning so nobody questions it." The room goes so quiet, Mara hears a sterilizer cart rattling beyond the pressure doors. Monday's client review is still being recorded. Halcyon's external compliance team is still watching. Nolan is offering her the pen because some part of him believes she will protect the family business even while he uses it to bury her. Mara says nothing, and she lets him submit it. Nolan waits for the reaction he knows how to handle: anger, tears, a threat. Mara gives him none. His pen stays suspended above the table. "You understand," he says, "that refusing to acknowledge receipt doesn't invalidate the corrective action." Mara turns the first page. The warning says she learned of washer 4's temperature deviation at 9:10 Friday morning and failed to notify management until late Sunday. It says 3 Halcyon garment lots entered production because of her delay. The details are almost right. That is Nolan's talent. He never builds a lie out of nothing. He takes the truth apart, replaces one small load-bearing piece, and puts it back together before anyone notices the floor has tilted. At the far end of the table, Denise Cho presses both palms against her closed notebook. A pale crescent marks her thumbnail where she has been worrying it with her teeth. She does not look at Mara. Lorna Bell from payroll stands beside the door with a cardboard file box and Mara's severance envelope tucked under one arm. Lorna had arrived at 9:43, apologizing because the copier jammed. She had heard Nolan say the termination was effective immediately. She had watched Mara place her badge on the table at 9:51. The clock on the wall reads 10:14. "Is that document controlled?" Imani asks through the speaker. Nolan turns toward the video wall with his client's smile. It is warm without being intimate, serious without suggesting alarm. He practiced it during the winter Halcyon bid until even his resting face looked prepared to accept a handshake. "It will be once submitted," he says. "Was it created Friday?" "It memorializes Friday's counseling." Imani's eyes move to Mara. "Ms. Vance?" Nolan answers first. "Mara's employment has ended. I don't think it's appropriate to put her in the middle of the company's response." Mara nearly laughs. The sound rises into her throat and stops there. She reads the second page. Nolan has attached the old late verification incident from 11 months ago, when an operator named Pete Alvarez had sliced his palm on a broken garment snap during night shift. Mara had allowed Denise to complete the secondary lot check 41 minutes late, while Pete went to urgent care. The garments never left quarantine. Mara documented the delay herself. Now it appears under a bold heading: Pattern of Disregard for Timely Quality Review. Nolan taps the signature line. "You can note that you disagree." The silver pen was a gift from Aunt Celia when Nolan landed Halcyon. Mara had ordered the engraving. She pushes it back toward him. "If you're submitting it," she says, "submit it." Something changes in his face, not fear. Nolan is too quick to fear what he cannot yet see. It is irritation, the look he gets when an automatic door fails to open on the first try. He swivels his laptop toward himself. For the record, employee declined to sign. His fingers move over the keys. Mara watches him attach the warning to CAR-247, the corrective action record Halcyon opened after Washer 4's failed validation run. He clicks the acknowledgement box and selects Vance Technical Laundry's internal document registry from a drop-down menu. A small confirmation window appears. "Register and submit?" "Yes," Imani says. "Please complete it while we're all present." Nolan clicks. The loading wheel turns once. A green banner replaces it. "Document registered. Client copy received." There it is. Small, ordinary, permanent. Nolan closes the laptop. "Lorna will escort you to your office." My office doesn't need an escort. It's procedure. No, Lorna says softly. It isn't. Everyone looks at her. Lorna adjusts the file box against her hip. But I'll carry this. The bottom's going. The cardboard chooses that moment to split with a papery sigh. A stack of empty folders spills across the carpet. Denise makes a strangled sound that could be a cough. Even Imani's mouth tightens at one corner. Nolan does not smile. 5 minutes, Mara. Mara crouches to help Lorna gather the folders. Under the table, beyond Nolan's polished shoes, she can see the ceramic validation dish sitting on the side counter. Empty. It had held 3 copper tokens at 7 that morning. She straightens slowly. Denise, she says. Denise finally meets her eyes. The review dish. I know. Nolan follows Mara's gaze. We cleared the room before the client call. You cleared it? We needed the table. The dish isn't on the table. Mara. His voice drops into the patient register he uses with relatives and vendors he intends to replace. Don't do this. She looks at Denise again. Did you clear it? Denise's thumbnail disappears between her teeth. No, she says. Nolan stacks the warning pages and taps them square. This meeting is over. The hallway outside quality assurance is warmer than the conference room and smells faintly of detergent, hot metal, and the lemon disinfectant purchasing buys because it costs $4 less per case. Through the observation windows, operators in blue coveralls move garment bundles beneath white light. A cart rolls out of decontamination with 6 sealed totes, each clipped with an RFID tag the size of a poker chip. Mara designed the color sequence taped above the doorway: red for received, yellow for washed, blue for inspected, green for released. The tape is curling at one corner. She is meant to replace it for 2 weeks. Pete Alvarez sees her with Lorna and the box. His eyebrows lift above his safety glasses. Mara shakes her head once. He lowers his eyes and pushes the cart on. Her badge is already dead. At the quality office, she holds it to the reader out of habit. The light flashes red. Lorna reaches around her with a temporary key card. That was fast. He planned the timing. He planned some of it. Mara glances at her. Lorna is 50-something, compact, and usually unwilling to say anything that cannot fit in a payroll cell. She opens the door and sets the box on Mara's desk. I was told 9:30, she says. Then he changed it to 9:45. Then he called at 9:38 and asked where I was. Why? I don't know. Maybe the clock offended him. Mara lifts her green mug from beside the monitor. A faded cartoon sheep on it says, EWE can do it. Denise gave it to her after an audit so bad they had eaten vending machine crackers for dinner 3 nights in a row. She puts the mug in the box. Her personal notebook goes beside it. Then a cardigan, 2 tea bags, a bottle of ibuprofen, and a tiny screwdriver set she bought after maintenance kept borrowing hers. 11 years of work and her private life fills less than half the box. Lorna points to the framed photograph on the shelf. That yours? Aunt Celia stands in the original plant 26 years earlier, one hand on the door of a washer that looked like a submarine hatch. Mara is beside her in the photograph, newly hired and trying to appear less nervous than she was. Nolan stands on Celia's other side, already wearing a tie in a room where the temperature routinely reached 90 degrees. Company history, Mara says. Leave it. She opens the shallow desk drawer. Inside are spare RFID clips, lip balm, a roll of label stock, and the copper token Celia gave her on her first morning. Its edge has gone smooth from years of Mara, turning it between her fingers during difficult calls. She picks it up. On Friday morning, that same token had been in the review dish. Washer 4's chart had come out of the printer at 8:47 with a shallow dip in the heat curve. Not a dramatic failure. The water held below the validated minimum for 93 seconds, then recovered. A sensor cable could loosen when the drum vibrated under a heavy load, and Friday's load contained thick, hooded coveralls from Halcyon's fermentation suite. Denise had stood beside Mara at the chart station, eating dry cereal from a paper cup. That little sag? She had asked. That's what's ruining my morning? It's ruining everybody's morning. I had plans to alphabetize my grudges. Mara ran the chart against the independent probe. The timestamps disagreed by 4 minutes. She checked the previous 2 cycles. Same drift, smaller each time. By 9:10, she had placed 3 copper tokens in the dish and changed the lots to red quarantine in the tracking system. The tokens were an old physical habit, but a useful one. Every token bore a tiny stamp number corresponding to a sterilizer or washer. If the dish was not empty, nothing left the clean side, regardless of what a screen claimed. At 9:26, Nolan came down from the front office without a hair cover. Denise pointed at his head. "Your thoughts are contaminating my hallway." Normally, he would have grinned and backed out. Friday, he shoved a cover over his hair and held up his phone. Halcyon moved pickup to noon. "They can move it back," Mara said. "They have a production run Saturday. Then they'll need garments from a validated load." He studied the chart, and Mara watched him understand it. Nolan had spent 3 years in plant operations before moving into sales. He knew what 93 seconds meant, and he knew it might mean nothing. That made him dangerous in a way ignorance never could. "Run the retained sample," he said. "Already started. And if it passes, we inspect the probe, and if the probe is loose, we document, repair, and reprocess. That misses noon." "Yes." He had rubbed a thumb across his phone screen. "Mara, we are 6 weeks from the loan conversion. Halcyon volume is the number the bank is using. The bacteria won't read the loan agreement." Denise stared into her cereal cup. Nolan's jaw tightened. "Hold the 3 lots. Don't open a deviation until we have the retained result. We need to open it now. I'm telling you to gather facts before you create a client-visible event." It became an event when the chart drifted. He glanced at the dish. 3 tokens. 3 loads stopped by something that could fit under his thumb. "You enjoy this part," he said. Mara had gone still. "Which part?" "The part where you're the only adult in the building." Denise put the cup down. Nolan left before Mara answered. At 9:41, she opened deviation VTL-8821. Now, on Monday, her computer displays a gray lock screen beneath the company logo. She slips Celia's token into her pocket. Lorna checks the wastebasket as if Mara might have hidden proprietary documents beneath a banana peel. "I hate this. You're doing your job." That's what people say when they want you to forgive the job. Mara closes the box. In the hallway, Nolan is waiting. He has removed his jacket and rolled his sleeves, preparing to look like a man personally stabilizing a crisis. Behind him, through the conference room glass, Denise is collecting water bottles. The ceramic dish remains on the counter, bright and empty. "Celia's coming in this afternoon," Nolan says. "She still has a key. She wants you to call her. Then she can call me. This isn't personal." Mara shifts the box against her ribs. The broken bottom bows. "You used my personnel record to answer a client deviation. You created unnecessary exposure and refused direct guidance. I quarantined failed loads. You escalated before the facts were complete. The facts were complete enough to stop release." His eyes flick toward Lorna. Mara sees the calculation. He wants privacy, family language, the old shorthand that can later mean anything. She steps closer to the observation window instead, where Pete and 2 other operators can see them from the clean side. "When did you write the warning?" she asks. Nolan's expression smooths. "We covered that." "When?" Friday's conversation was the warning. Friday's conversation ended with you telling me to hold the lots. I told you not to open the deviation. You told me both. You chose the instruction that suited you. There is his real grievance, clean and sharp. Nolan looks at the box, then at her face. For one unguarded second, he seems tired rather than cruel. "You think being right will keep this place open," he says. "It won't." Mara thinks of the equipment loan, 40 paychecks, Aunt Celia's name printed on every sealed garment bag. She thinks of the way the green confirmation banner appeared on Nolan's screen. "No," she says, but being wrong on purpose won't do it either. Outside, the morning air carries exhaust from the loading docks. Lorna walks Mara to her car and writes 1031 on the property return form before asking her to sign. "Do you want a copy?" "Yes." The office copier's still jammed. "Take a picture with my phone." Lorna photographs the form beside the box, making sure the time is visible. Then she photographs the surrendered badge in her palm. "You always this particular?" she asks. "Only when I've been fired retroactively." Lorna gives a short laugh, then looks guilty for it. Mara sets the box on the passenger seat. Her phone begins vibrating in her pocket. Aunt Celia, then her mother, then Nolan calling from 20 yards away inside the building. Mara silences all three. Before she starts the car, she takes out the copper token. Washer 4 is stamped into its face. W4 slightly crooked because Celia used to mark them by hand. There had been 3 tokens in the dish. Nolan had noticed them before he fired her, and somewhere between her surrendering her badge and the client asking for the warning, all 3 had disappeared. The copper token warmed in Mara's palm while the missed calls multiplied. Her mother left the first voicemail. "Mara, call me before you say anything to anybody. Celia's upset, Nolan's upset, and I don't know what happened, but we can keep it from turning into something permanent." Mara listened twice to the phrase "something permanent." Celia's message was shorter. "Come to Linda's at 6, just us." Nolan sent a text. "Your final pay and severance paperwork will be ready tomorrow. Please don't contact Halcyon personnel. They're our client." Mara took a screenshot, then hated herself for doing it. 11 years of teaching people to preserve records had turned even pain into an administrative task. She drove home by way of the industrial park's rear road. At the intersection, a Vance technical laundry truck passed in the opposite direction, the blue and white logo clean against its side. Pete was driving. His hand lifted automatically when he recognized her car, then dropped below the window. Her apartment was 12 miles from the plant in a brick building where the hallway always smelled like somebody else's dinner. She carried the box upstairs, set it on her kitchen counter, and discovered that Lorna had slipped a roll of packing tape inside. A note was stuck to it, for the bottom, not evidence. Mara taped the box anyway. At 5:30, she changed out of the navy blouse she had worn for the client review. There was a smear of black ink near the cuff, probably from Nolan's warning. She scrubbed it in the sink until the fabric was wet to the elbow, then hung it over the shower rod and put on a gray sweater. Her mother opened the front door before Mara knocked. Linda Vance had Celia's narrow shoulders and none of her patience. She hugged Mara hard, held her at arm's length, and said, "You look terrible. Good to see you, too. You know what I mean." Celia sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee and a plate of untouched pound cake. At 71, she still wore her silver hair clipped back as if she might need to put on a cleanroom hood without warning. Her company fleece was zipped to her throat. Mara took the chair across from her. "Where's Nolan?" she asked. "I said just us," Celia replied. "You also said 6. It's 6. Linda moved between the counter and table, straightening things that were already straight. "I made chicken. I'm not hungry." Everybody says that before they eat chicken. Celia folded her hands around the mug. A dark grease mark ran along one knuckle. She had been at the plant then, probably inside Washer 4's service panel. Retirement had never persuaded her that trained maintenance technicians were better than her with a wrench. "Nolan says you opened a client-visible deviation before completing an internal assessment. I opened a deviation after 2 records disagreed and 3 cycles showed probe drift. He says he told you to hold the lots." "He did." "And you held them?" "Yes." Celia looked down into her coffee. Linda set the chicken on the table harder than necessary. "Then why did he fire you?" "That's the interesting part." "Mara, he fired me because I opened the deviation. He told Halcyon he fired me because I didn't." Celia's eyes lifted. What exactly did he submit? A warning created after my termination, dated Friday, saying I knew about the drift and failed to report it. The refrigerator hummed behind them. Linda sat beside her sister. Maybe it was drafted Friday. It wasn't. How do you know? I watched him type part of it. Celia's fingers tightened around the mug. He backdated it in front of Halcyon, Mara said. He said why out loud, and then he registered it. Celia stood abruptly and crossed to the sink. For a moment, Mara thought she might be sick. Instead, she rinsed out her coffee, though she had barely touched it. He's trying to keep the client, Celia said. That doesn't change what he did. The bank reviews the loan in August. I know. If Halcyon suspends work, we miss the volume covenant. I know. 42 people work there. I know their names. Celia turned. Then help me understand why you couldn't wait 2 hours for the retained sample. Because he ordered the loads held and ordered the record hidden. One instruction protected the garments. The other protected the invoice. You could have called me. You retired. That has never stopped you before. It was true, and its truth made Mara angrier. Celia wanted to be free of daily authority until authority was needed, then wounded that nobody had placed it back in her hands. Linda began serving chicken nobody had requested. Nolan thinks in dollars because somebody has to. Mara thinks in dollars, Celia said. She just believes they should behave themselves. It was the closest thing to affection Celia had offered all evening. Mara reached into her pocket and put the W-4 token on the table. Celia looked at it. There were 3 in the review dish at 7 this morning, Mara said. By the time he submitted the warning, the dish was empty. Did you take this one? This is mine, the one you gave me. Celia touched the crooked stamp with one finger. I made those from electrical knockouts. First year, we couldn't afford a proper tracking board. I know. Nolan hated them, said they made us look homemade. Were you at the plant after I left? Until 4. Did you see the 3 from this morning? No. Did you ask Denise? Celia's face closed. I'm not conducting an interrogation based on tableware. They mark held equipment. The electronic system is the record. And if somebody changes the electronic record... Celia pushed the token back toward her. You need to decide what you want. My job is gone. Jobs can come back. Not that one. Linda stopped with the serving spoon over Mara's plate. Don't say that tonight. Nolan said it this morning. You two have fought before. He fabricated discipline after firing me, and you want him fired now? Mara looked from her mother to her aunt. They were waiting for a demand they could reject as excessive. It would let them turn the evening into a negotiation over her temperament. I want the warning withdrawn, she said. I want the reason for termination corrected. I want the 3 lots reprocessed under a repaired validation system. And I want Halcyon told that the submission was false. Celia gave a tired exhale. That last one could cost us the contract. That's why he used me. Linda put the spoon down. Celia walked Mara to the door after dinner. Neither of them had eaten much. From the living room came the low murmur of a game show Linda had turned on because silence bothered her more than conflict. On the porch, Celia zipped her fleece against the evening chill. Your mother's worried about your health insurance, she said. My coverage runs through the end of the month. Nolan offered 8 weeks severance. He offered paperwork. I haven't seen the terms. Take a day before you answer. Did he ask you to come in today? He asked me to look at washer 4. And the independent probe cable was loose, enough to create the drift. Possibly. Was it documented? Celia stared toward the street. Maintenance will issue a report. Who is writing it? Nolan assigned Grant. Grant Sweeney reported to Nolan and believed punctuation was a personal attack. Mara nodded. Then I'll wait for the masterpiece. Celia almost smiled. Don't go to Halcyon, she said. He already took me there. The severance agreement arrived by courier at 9 the next morning. 8 weeks of salary in exchange for a general release, confidentiality, non-disparagement, and a clause requiring Mara to affirm that all company records in her possession had been returned. The company would provide dates of employment and final title to prospective employers. Nothing addressed the warning or reason for termination. A cover letter gave her until Friday. Mara read it at her kitchen counter with the green sheet mug beside her. Her automatic payroll deposit had covered rent 3 days earlier. She had savings, but not the kind that made principal painless. The plant had been her first call every morning and the reason she declined vacations that required more than one connecting flight. Her resume had not been updated since quality systems still lived on local servers. She called an employment attorney whose name Denise had once written on a napkin after a former operator's overtime dispute. Judith Kane charged $300 for an hour and spent the first 10 minutes telling Mara what she could not promise. A lie at work isn't automatically a legal case, Judith said. Firing you for refusing to falsify a compliance response may be. The distinction will depend on records you don't control. The client has the recording, if they kept it. The registry has the creation timestamp, if we can get it. I built the registry workflow. That means you know what exists. It doesn't mean anyone has to hand it over because you ask politely. Judith read the agreement, circled 4 clauses, and advised Mara not to sign it as written. A preservation letter would cost less than a lawsuit and might keep relevant records from disappearing, but sending one would harden Nolan's position. He already fired me, Mara said. People can make a firing more expensive after the fact. References, industry gossip, accusations that you retained confidential material. He attached an old incident to make me look careless. Was the incident real? Yes. Then he's better at this than the average angry employer. Mara paid for the consultation from her emergency account. In the parking lot, she sat behind the wheel and watched the balance update on her phone. Skill, she thought, had always been easier to defend when someone was still paying her for it. At noon, an email arrived from Lorna's personal address. It contained a scan of the property return form and one sentence. The copier has reconsidered its choices. The form showed Mara's badge returned at 10:31 Monday. Beneath the scan, the camera metadata recorded when Lorna had taken the photograph. Mara saved both. She drafted a response to the severance agreement, deleted 3 angry lines, and asked for the warning's withdrawal, correction of the termination record, and preservation of the Monday client review, document registry history, access logs, washer 4 data, and CAR-247 audit trail. She copied Nolan, Celia, and the company's outside accountant, who served as corporate secretary because small family companies collected titles the way junk drawers collected keys. Nolan replied in 11 minutes. Your access to confidential quality records ended with your employment. Any attempt to interfere with VTL's client relationship will be treated as misconduct and may result in withdrawal of severance. 5 minutes later, her mother texted, "Did you just threaten the company?" Mara turned the phone face down. By Thursday, 2 recruiters had canceled introductory calls. One said the position had been filled. The other spoke too carefully and said the client wanted someone comfortable with collaborative risk decisions. Nolan was making calls. Mara knew because he used her own phrase. She had written collaborative risk decision into the management review template 3 years earlier. She was rinsing her mug when someone knocked. Denise stood outside in her production jacket, hair flattened on one side from a cleanroom hood. She held a grocery bag containing a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and nothing else. "You bring lunch to every unemployed person?" Mara asked. "I panicked at the store. Come in." Denise set the bag down and remained standing. "Nolan changed the morning huddle," she said. "Supervisors only. He's interviewing everyone who touched the Halcyon lots one at a time." "About what?" "Whether you told us to delay entering the deviation." "I entered it myself." "I know." "Does he?" "He knows everything he needs to work around." Mara leaned against the counter. "Where are the tokens?" Denise looked toward the window as if Nolan might be suspended outside on window washing cables. "I took them out of the dish after he told me to clear the conference room." "Where?" "Sealed glove bag in my locker." I wrote the date and time across the seal. Relief came so sharply Mara had to set down the mug. "Why didn't you tell me?" Because I watched him fire you. Denise's voice cracked on the last word, and she looked furious about it. Mara waited. He asked me this morning to recreate the equipment hold log, Denise continued. Said Mondays was missing. The log isn't missing. No, it shows 3 tokens placed at 7:06. He wants a clean copy that says the dish was checked at 7 and found empty. Did you sign it? I said I needed to compare the tracking system. And now? Now he knows I'm stalling. Mara rubbed the smooth edge of her token through her pocket. Don't bring me anything, she said. Don't email me records. Keep the originals where they belong. Denise blinked. That's your advice? That's my boundary. I came here because I thought you'd have a plan. I have peanut butter. A reluctant laugh escaped Denise, then vanished. He used Celia's approval stamp on a revised deviation procedure, she said. The revision says management can delay client visibility until preliminary review is complete. When was it effective? Friday. When was it registered? Denise met her eyes. Tuesday morning. Nolan was no longer merely explaining Monday. He was reaching backward from it, building a hallway of false doors. Mara took her phone from the counter and turned it over. Another message waited from Nolan. Effective immediately, all communication regarding VTL, its employees, and Halcyon must be directed through counsel. Below it was a second message, sent only to her. Sign the agreement, Mara. Stop making the family pay for this. She showed Denise. Denise read it and looked toward the grocery bag. Can I have my bread back? Mara handed it to her. Keep the peanut butter, Denise said. You're going to need something that sticks. Denise left with the bread under one arm and instructions to do nothing dramatic. Define dramatic, she said from the doorway. Anything you've seen people do on television. That eliminates throwing wine. You don't drink wine. I could start. After she was gone, Mara ate a spoonful of peanut butter over the sink and sent Judith Kane a photograph of Nolan's message. Judith replied with a revised estimate for a preservation letter. Mara stared at the number long enough for the screen to dim. Then she authorized it. The letter went out that afternoon. It named the meeting recording, the document registry, both versions of the deviation procedure, badge access records, the equipment hold log, the 3 copper tokens, and the raw data from washer 4. Judith's language was calm enough to make anger look amateurish. At 4:30, Vance Technical Laundry's attorney responded that Mara's severance offer was withdrawn due to ongoing interference with protected business relationships. 8 weeks of salary vanished between one email and the next. Her mother came over that evening carrying 2 canvas grocery bags and the expression of someone entering a building after smelling smoke. I brought actual food, Linda said. I have peanut butter. You've had peanut butter since you were 6. Mara took the bags. That's a strong brand history. Linda did not smile. She began putting containers into the refrigerator. Chicken soup, roasted vegetables, meatloaf, each labeled in black marker. Her hands moved too fast. Nolan told Celia you hired a lawyer. I paid one to write a letter. With what? Money. You know what I'm asking. I have savings. For how long? Mara closed the refrigerator. Longer if everybody stops bringing me food. Linda leaned against the counter. She looked smaller without Celia beside her. Nolan says the retained sample passed. It did. So the garments were safe. We don't know that. The sample passed. The independent probe and machine chart disagreed. A retained sample passing tells you about the sample. Linda rubbed her forehead. I don't understand why every answer has another door behind it. That's the job, and now it isn't. There was no cruelty in the words. That made them land harder. Linda looked immediately sorry. I meant, I know. Celia thinks Nolan panicked. He panicked very efficiently. She says the bank has been pressing him for 3 months. He could have told me. Would you have released the loads? No. Then what would telling you change? I would have known why my cousin was asking me to risk my career. Linda sat on one of the kitchen stools. He believes he's protecting the company. From a problem he hid. From losing everything Celia built. Mara took the copper token from her pocket and rolled it along her knuckles. She had carried it so long now that its absence would have felt stranger than its weight. "What do you believe?" she asked. Linda watched the token move. "I believe you tell the truth in a way that makes people wish they hadn't asked." "That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have tonight." The next morning, Mara interviewed for a quality manager position at a surgical instrument reprocessing company outside Newark. The plant manager, a bearded man named Wes, seemed pleased that she knew the difference between a failed biological indicator and an incomplete batch record. He showed her photographs of their new ultrasonic cleaning line and complained cheerfully about salespeople who promised validation dates before facilities finished installing drains. For 40 minutes, the conversation felt normal. Then Wes laced his fingers across the table. "You're still with Vance?" "My employment ended Monday." "That recent?" "Yes." "May I ask why?" Mara had rehearsed a clean answer, a dispute over deviation handling, a difference in professional judgment, nothing accusatory. Wes listened, then glanced at the resume. "Nolan Vance your reference?" "No." "Right. I met him at the Mid-Atlantic Processing Conference." Of course he had. Nolan collected conference acquaintances with the same energy other people reserved for airline miles. Wes's tone remained courteous. "He mentioned they'd had a quality manager mishandle a client event. No name." "And when did he mention that?" "Tuesday." The room's ventilation fan clicked on. Mara could challenge the story and look consumed by it. She could stay vague and let Nolan's version occupy the space. "The client event involved a warning created after I was fired and dated before it," she said. "I'm contesting the record." Wes lowered his eyes for a second. "That sounds complicated." "It isn't. The consequences are." He walked her to reception 15 minutes later. By lunch, the recruiter sent a polite rejection. Mara forwarded it to Judith, who responded that proving retaliation through industry gossip would require evidence they did not have. Another true thing that did not help. Celia arrived just after 2 in her pickup truck. She came upstairs carrying a black binder with VTL procedures stamped on the spine, then stopped outside Mara's door. "I'm not giving you this," she said. "I didn't ask for it." "You can look at it while I'm holding it." "Come in." Celia placed the binder on the counter but kept one hand flat on the cover. From a plastic sleeve, she removed the revised deviation procedure. Her approval stamp appeared at the bottom. C. Vance, founder/technical advisor. The effective date was Friday. The revision history was printed in a narrow box on the back. Registered Tuesday, 8/12/A. Did you approve it?" Mara asked. "I told Nolan in March that he could update response timelines if Halcyon's portal required it." "That isn't approval of this revision." "No. Did he use your physical stamp?" "My stamp stays in the technical office." "Who has the key?" "Denise, Grant, Nolan, me." Celia's fingertip rested beside the new paragraph. It allowed management to postpone opening a client visible deviation for up to 1 business day while conducting a preliminary equipment assessment. "Would you approve this?" Mara asked. "Not with up to 1 business day. Would you approve any delay after conflicting validation data?" "I'd permit an internal technical review while the lots were held." "That's what Nolan says he meant." "That may be what he meant. He made it effective Friday because I didn't read his mind correctly on Friday." Celia snapped the binder closed. "You always make it sound so simple." "He used your name, and I'll deal with that." "How?" "Inside the company." Mara turned the token between 2 fingers. "The inside of the company is where he put my warning." Celia looked at the green sheep mug, the taped cardboard box, the containers Linda had stacked in the refrigerator. Her face softened, but only briefly. "I pushed him to win Halcyon," she said. "He wanted to bid on half their volume. I told him timid companies die clean and unnoticed." "That sounds like you." "He mortgaged the new line based on the full contract." I warned both of you the turnaround was too aggressive. You warn people so often, it becomes weather. Mara absorbed that. Celia pulled out a stool and sat. He's good at what he does. I know. He took us from hospital linen and machine shop uniforms into controlled environments. He learned enough microbiology to sell honestly, which is more than most salesmen bother with. He remembers every purchasing manager's pressure points. He knows when to cut margin and when to stand. I know. And he is scared. I know that too. Then leave room for scared to be different from rotten. Mara placed the token on the counter between them. I left him room on Friday. He filled it with my name. Celia's gaze dropped to the crooked W4 stamp. Halcyon contacted me this morning, she said. Mara stopped moving. They sent a preservation notice to Nolan and copied the ownership group. They want a reconciliation of the timeline. Because of Judith's letter? Because their compliance director reviewed the meeting recording. Imani. Yes. What did Nolan tell them? That the warning was drafted Friday and formally entered Monday. I watched him type it Monday. He says he was revising it. What do you say? Celia stood and tucked the procedure back into its sleeve. I say I want to see the registry. That evening, Imani Brooks sent Mara a meeting request from her Halcyon address. The subject line read, CAR-247, Fact Reconciliation. Judith advised Mara to attend but warned that Halcyon's priority was Halcyon. The company might identify falsification and still choose the cheapest contractual solution. It might suspend VTL, demand remediation, or shift volume elsewhere. None of those outcomes guaranteed Mara compensation or even a corrected employment record. Truth can be useful to them without being useful to you, Judith said. I know. Do you? I'm learning. The meeting was scheduled for Friday at VTL. Imani requested Mara's presence, along with Nolan, Celia, Denise, Lorna, Grant from maintenance, and Halcyon's supplier quality specialist. She required live access to the registry, the client portal, Washer 4's raw data, badge logs, the original equipment hold log, and all physical controls associated with the affected lots. Nolan's attorney objected to Mara attending on company property. Imani replied that Halcyon would hold the meeting at its regional office instead. Nolan withdrew the objection. Thursday afternoon, a courier delivered a new proposal. 12 weeks of salary, neutral dates and title reference. The warning would remain internal and would not be shared outside legal necessity. Mara would agree that management had discussed performance concerns with her Friday and that the written warning had been prepared in substantial form before Monday's meeting. She read it twice. 12 weeks gave her time. The neutral reference might reopen doors Nolan had begun closing. The language did not require her to say she had seen the warning. Friday, it asked her to accept a softer falsehood, one with rounded edges. Celia called once. It's a real offer, she said. It leaves the warning in my file, where nobody will see it. Nolan already described it to Wes Danner. A pause. I didn't know that. He knew enough to reject me. I can stop Nolan from making more calls. You couldn't stop him from using your stamp. Celia inhaled slowly. That was low. It was accurate. Those are not opposites with you. Mara sat at the kitchen counter until the light outside thinned and the copper token became a dark circle beside the agreement. At 8, she rejected the offer. At 8:15, Linda texted that she loved her but could not keep standing between the two sides. Mara typed 3 replies and erased all of them. At 9, Denise appeared carrying the same grocery bag. This time, it held her production notebook. I'm not giving you this, she said. Family habit. Denise opened it on the counter. Monday's entry showed 3 equipment tokens placed in the dish at 7:06 a.m., with the lot numbers written beside them. A later line, in different ink, read tokens removed for meeting setup, 9:32. That's not your handwriting, Mara said. Grant's. Nolan told him to add it today. Were the tokens removed at 9:32? I took them at 10:22 after you left the room. Why? Nolan told me to throw them back in the supply cup. I put them in a glove bag instead. Is the seal intact? Yes. Keep it that way. Denise closed the notebook. He says you want the plant shut down. He knows better. Pete thinks you should take the settlement. Pete has a mortgage. So do I. Mara looked at her. You can tell Imani exactly what happened without choosing me. That sounds like something you practiced. It's something I need you to understand. Denise pressed her thumbnail against the notebook's spiral. And if they fire me? Mara had no comforting lie ready. Then I'll help you look for work. That's not enough. No. Denise's eyes shone, but her voice stayed level. Good. I was getting tired of everybody pretending enough was available. Friday morning, Mara wore the navy blouse with the ink stain, mostly faded from its cuff. She arrived early enough to watch the first shift enter through the side doors. Lorna met her in reception with a visitor badge. The badge log displayed 8:42 beside Mara's name. I checked the copier, Lorna said. It's emotionally prepared. In the conference room, the ceramic dish had been returned to the side counter, empty again. Nolan stood at the glass table arranging printed packets. Celia sat near the video controls, the black procedure binder in front of her. Denise entered carrying a sealed glove bag and placed it beside her notebook. 3 copper tokens slid against the plastic with a muted clink. Nolan looked at them, then at Mara. Imani appeared on the video wall as the registry login screen brightened behind her. Before we begin, she said, Mr. Vance, please put the warning you submitted Monday on the table. Nolan removed it from his packet and laid it between them. The date beside Mara's name was still Friday. Imani asked Lorna to state when Mara's termination became effective. Lorna opened a blue folder. Mr. Vance said, effective immediately, at approximately 9:51 Monday morning. Ms. Vance surrendered her badge at the table. I completed the property return form in the parking lot at 10:31. Why the delay? The box broke. Imani waited. Lorna adjusted her glasses. That wasn't relevant. Sorry. It helps account for the time. Do you have the original form? Lorna held it up. And the photograph taken at 10:31. The phone recorded the time automatically. Nolan's attorney leaned toward him and whispered. Nolan kept his attention on Imani. The company doesn't dispute the termination time, he said. The warning reflects performance counseling that took place Friday. The written document was finalized Monday. After the termination, Imani said, documentation often follows the underlying event. Mara sat with her hands folded beneath the table, the copper token pressed into her thigh through her pocket. Imani shared her screen. Let's begin with the equipment event. Grant cleared his throat and read from his service report. He had found a loose connection at the independent temperature probe, tightened it Monday afternoon, and run 3 successful verification cycles. The retained sample from Friday met the required biological standard. Was washer 4 safe? Nolan asked. Grant looked toward the camera instead. It passed after the connection was tightened, and Friday's retained sample passed. Yes. So the original load met specification. I can say the sample met specification. Mara saw Nolan's irritation. Grant had finally discovered punctuation. Imani's supplier quality specialist, a quiet man named Thomas Reed, enlarged the raw temperature curves. Ms. Vance, what did you see Friday? The machine chart and independent probe disagreed by 4 minutes. The machine record also showed 93 seconds below our validated minimum. I checked the 2 prior cycles and found smaller versions of the same drift. Did you know the cause? No. What did you do? Placed the 3 affected lots on physical and electronic hold. Started the retained sample test. Open deviation VTL-8821 at 9:41. Nolan shifted forward. Before the retained result was available and contrary to my instruction. Did you tell me to hold the lots? Yes. Did I hold them? Yes. Did you tell me not to open the deviation? I told you to complete preliminary review first. Did you tell me how long to wait? I said we needed the retained result, which would not be available until Saturday. Correct. Imani tapped a pen against her desk. The Halcyon Quality Agreement requires notification within 4 hours of discovering a potential loss of validated control. Waiting for the retained result would have exceeded that. Nolan nodded. That's why we revised our internal procedure. There was confusion about when the 4-hour period began. Celia opened the black binder. The revision didn't clarify the client requirement, she said. It created a management delay before the clock started. Nolan looked at her. You authorized me in March to align our response procedure with Halcyon. I authorized a revision. I didn't approve this one. Your approval stamp is on it. You used my stamp Tuesday and made the procedure effective Friday, his attorney whispered again. Nolan shook his head once, a small, impatient movement. The procedure formalized existing management practice, he said. The date reflects when that practice was communicated. To Mara? Imani asked. Yes. Mara looked at Celia's hands. They rested flat on the binder, grease still shadowing the crease of one knuckle. What exact instruction did you communicate? Imani asked Nolan. I told her to hold the lots and gather facts before creating a client visible event. 2 different controls, Mara said. He treated them like one. Nolan turned to her. Because they should have been one. We could protect the product without alarming the client over a loose cable. We didn't know it was a loose cable. We knew it probably was. Tomas looked up from the data. Probability is why the hold was appropriate. Exactly, Nolan said, and why the deviation was appropriate. Nolan's jaw worked once. Imani asked Denise to open the original equipment hold log. Denise laid her production notebook beside the sealed glove bag. Her voice sounded thin at first, then strengthened as she explained the dish routine. A token went into the dish when a supervisor placed equipment or associated lots on hold. The electronic system remained the controlled record. The tokens gave operators a visible stop at the conference room release checkpoint. At 7:06 Monday, she said, I confirmed the 3 holds were active and put 3 W4 tokens in the dish. And at 9:32? Imani asked. Grant didn't remove them then. Grant stared at his service report. Mr. Vance asked me yesterday to add that line from his meeting notes. Were you in the conference room at 9:32 Monday? No. Why did you enter it? Grant's ears reddened. He said the dish was cleared before the meeting. Imani turned to Denise. When were the tokens removed? 10:22. Mr. Vance told me to return them to the supply cup. Did you? I sealed them. She slid the bag across the glass. 3 copper circles gathered at its bottom. Her initials crossed the seal beside the date and time. Nolan picked up the bag. For the first time that morning, his composure loosened. Not much. His thumb pressed the plastic until the face of one token showed through. This is theater, he said. The holds remained electronic. The garments never shipped. We're discussing obsolete metal markers as though they determined product safety. Mara took her token from her pocket and set it on the table. They don't determine safety. They show what the people in the room knew. Nolan looked at the crooked W4 stamp. He recognized it. Imani did too. Is that one of the affected tokens? No, Mara said. It's an old one made from the same batch. Celia gave it to me when I started. Why do you have it? Because it's mine. Nolan set the glove bag down. This entire review has drifted away from the actual issue. Mara bypassed management in a way that jeopardized a critical contract. I made the decision to terminate her for that judgment. Maybe the paperwork should have been cleaner, but the decision was mine to make. His words changed the temperature in the room. They were direct, almost welcome after days of careful phrasing. Mara believed him. That was the contradiction at the center of Nolan. He thought ownership of a decision could redeem what he did to enforce it. Imani stopped tapping her pen. "The paperwork is the issue before us," she said. "You submitted it to establish that the deviation resulted from a terminated employee's failure to report. If she reported within the required period, your corrective action analysis is false. She was terminated for disregarding direction. That isn't what the warning says. It documents a broader pattern. Then let's inspect when it was created." The registry administrator joined remotely and took control of the shared screen. She opened CAR-247, selected the warning, and expanded its history. The first row showed Monday at 10:07:13 a.m., created by Nolan Vance. Below it, 10:11:42. Effective date manually set, prior calendar date. Then 10:14:06, registered and submitted to Halcyon Biologics. The date printed on the warning remained Friday. Nolan leaned toward the screen. "As I said, the written document memorialized Friday's counseling." Imani opened the recording from Monday's review. Mara saw herself on the video wall, pale beneath the conference room lights. Nolan sat beside her with the silver pen in his hand. "We'll backdate your warning so nobody questions it." The recorded sentence passed through the room and ended. Imani paused the video. Nolan's attorney removed his glasses. "You told us Monday that the warning was created Friday," Imani said. "The registry shows it was created 7 minutes after the employee was terminated. The recording shows you stating that you intended to backdate it, so it would not be questioned. I used the word carelessly. You used the document deliberately." Nolan looked across the table at Mara. She had imagined this moment during showers, at red lights, in the sleepless hour after rejecting 12 weeks of salary. In some versions, he broke. In others, she delivered a sentence so precise it returned every humiliation to him. He simply looked tired. Imani addressed Mara. "Did you receive verbal performance counseling Friday?" "Nolan told me I enjoyed being the only adult in the building." Celia closed her eyes. "He also instructed me to hold the affected lots," Mara continued. "He objected to opening the deviation. He didn't tell me I had violated a procedure, and he didn't warn me that my job was at risk." "Did you know about the prior 2 drift events before Friday morning?" "I found them Friday while reviewing earlier charts." "Did anyone report them to you earlier?" "No." Imani looked at Nolan. "Your submission says she delayed reporting from Friday until Sunday. That conclusion was based on the pattern in the data. You represented an inference as a documented personnel fact." Nolan's attorney put one hand over the microphone and spoke to him. Nolan listened this time. When the microphone came back on, Nolan's voice had lost its client warmth. "Vance Technical Laundry will withdraw the warning from the corrective action packet and replace the root cause analysis," Imani said. "Halcyon is suspending assignment of new garment lots to VTL effective today. Current quarantined inventory will remain held until an independent assessor approves reprocessing." Celia's face went rigid. Denise looked down at the 3 tokens. Imani continued. "Resumption will require a corrected submission, restoration of the original deviation procedure pending review, an audit of document approvals, and a governance plan separating commercial authority from quality release decisions. Mr. Vance will have no approval role in Halcyon quality events during remediation." "How long?" Celia asked. "We'll schedule the assessor as soon as you submit an acceptable plan." Nolan's hand rested beside the warning. "You understand what a suspension does to our volume commitment?" "Yes," Imani said. "That is why accuracy in a corrective action response matters." The meeting ended with assignments, dates, and the mechanical exchange of files. Chairs rolled back. Papers went into folders. Lorna collected visitor badges near the door. Mara remained seated until Nolan's attorney left the room. Nolan stood across from her, one palm on the glass. "You got what you wanted." Mara looked through the warning at the shadow of his hand beneath it. "I wanted you to correct the record before Halcyon had to force you. You knew that wouldn't happen." "I hoped." "That's worse." Celia came between them and removed the warning from the table. "The shareholders meet at 2, she told Nolan. "Bring the loan documents and the company attorney. You're removing me from operations today. You can't run sales and remediation." "No, which is why I'm calling people who can." Nolan looked at Mara. She shook her head. "Don't. I didn't ask." "You were about to." A bitter smile touched his mouth. "Still the only adult in the building." "No, that was always the problem. You kept acting like there could only be one." By the following week, VTL's corrected submission identified management pressure and uncontrolled document approval as contributing causes. The warning came out of Mara's personnel file. Nolan signed an employment correction stating she had reported the equipment event within the required period and had been terminated after a dispute over escalation timing. Halcyon's suspension lasted 6 weeks. The plant shortened shifts, delayed the equipment loan conversion, and lost enough revenue to make every family dinner uncomfortable. To fund the independent audit and keep payroll current, Nolan agreed to sell part of his stake back to the other shareholders over time. He remained responsible for several sales accounts, but every quality decision passed around him. Celia asked Mara to return as quality director. They met at Linda's kitchen table, where an untouched pound cake had again appeared between them. "No," Mara said. Celia nodded as if she had expected it. "Consulting?" 6 months, fixed hours. Denise becomes quality director now, not after I leave. She hasn't held the title. She's done the work. What else? Payment every 2 weeks. The corrected employment record goes to anyone Nolan contacted. My legal fees and withheld compensation are included. I control the remediation schedule within the client deadline. If commercial staff pressure an operator to change a record, I walk. Celia cut herself a slice of cake. "You negotiate like me." "I document like you used to." That one reached her. She put down the knife. "I'm sorry," Celia said. Mara waited for the qualification. It did not come. She accepted the consulting agreement after Judith reviewed it and reduced her bill enough to call the adjustment professional courtesy. Mara still lost most of the severance money to 6 weeks without income, legal fees, and insurance premiums. The Newark company never called back. Pete avoided her for a month, then apologized beside washer 4 while pretending to inspect a cartwheel. Linda stopped bringing labeled containers and started coming to Mara's apartment for coffee. They spoke about Nolan rarely and carefully. On Mara's final consulting day, washer 4 completed a validation cycle with matching probes and a smooth temperature curve. Denise reviewed the raw data, signed the release, and carried a copper token into the conference room. The glass table had been moved 6 inches to make room for a locked cabinet containing controlled stamps. Celia's old rubber approval stamp had been cut in half and mounted inside as a reminder nobody needed explained. Denise dropped the token into the ceramic dish. It made a small, bright click. "All clear," she said. Mara took Celia's old token from her pocket. The crooked W4 had polished smooth at the edges. She placed it beside the new one. For a moment, the 2 pieces of copper rested together in the white dish, one worn and one sharp. Then Mara picked up her green sheet mug and left them both behind.